For Japanese corporations, cybersecurity and GDPR are key issues. Mayor Brown has a team of global lawyers expert in cybersecurity and risk matters. サイバーセキュリティと GDPR は日本の企業にとっては重要な課題でございます。メア・ブラウンは世界有数のチームからなるサイバーセキュリティとリスクの対応の専門家がおります。
The GDPR is a set of rules which applies to how personal data must be handled by businesses operating in Europe. It also gives individuals whose personal data is being collected and handled by businesses certain rights. The GDPR has extraterritorial effect and applies in some circumstances to businesses offering services in Europe and collecting and processing personal data of citizens in Europe. When does the GDPR apply to Japanese companies?
EU 内でデータの取り扱いを行っているかいないかにかかわらず、EU 内の活動に関連して行われる個人データの取り扱いには GDPR が適用されます。So if the GDPR applies, what do Japanese companies need to do to comply?
The obligations under the GDPR on a Japanese company depend upon whether it's a controller or a processor. A controller would be the person who determines the means by which the data is processed, the purposes for which the data is being used, and the processor is a person who processes data in accordance with the instructions of the controller. Underpinning most of the obligations to the controller under the GDPR are certain data protection principles, and these are directed at imposing obligations on the controller to minimise the amount of data collected, be transparent about the reasons the data is being collected and the purposes for which it is being used, and not keeping data for longer than it needs to be kept. How is personal data transferred from the EU to Japan?
個人情報はいくつかの機構を通して EU 内から EU 外に移転することができます。現在、日本企業は欧州委員会に承認された標準契約条項を使って情報を移転することができます。標準契約条項は個人情報が適切に処理されるようにさまざまな条件を満たすことを移転先に要求します。また、移転先が EU 監督機関が承認したグループ企業規定 BCR を締結した場合も個人情報を移転することができます。EU と日本は最近お互いの個人情報保護制度が適切であると合意しました。日本企業はこれから標準契約条項や BCR なしで個人情報を移転することができるようになります。レベルの高い保護制度に基づいた世界で最大規模の情報移転安全地域を築くことになると EU は言っています。日本は今までに EU が十分に適正であると認めた国の中で群れを抜いて大きくニュージーランド、アルゼンチン、イスラエル、スイスの仲間入りをします。So what will be the impacts of Brexit on data transfers between Japan and the UK?
So Brexit shouldn't affect the transfer of personal data between the UK and Japan too much. Japan is an adequate country for the purposes of the EU data protection law and will continue to be treated as an adequate country under the UK Data Protection Act post the UK's departure from the EU. Standard contractual clauses will also remain a route by which personal data can be exported from the UK to Japan, as will BCRs or binding corporate rules. However, transfers between the European Union, the remaining countries in the European Union, and the UK post-Brexit, if there is no withdrawal agreement or similar arrangement, could face some difficulty because the UK may no longer be treated as an adequate country for the purposes of EU data transfer arrangements, and companies will need to put in place standard contractual clauses or binding corporate rules to transfer personal data between data controllers based in the remaining European Union countries and the UK. Data protection is obviously an issue which has got high priority in Japan, partly because of its general compliance nature, and partly because there have been reforms in Japanese data protection law in order to simplify the data transfers between Europe and Japan. And clearly a concern is going to be the impact of Brexit on those data transfers. The way in which the UK will leave the European Union, either with a deal or without a deal, should not dramatically affect the ability of Japanese businesses to continue doing business and moving data between the UK and Japan, and between the remaining European countries and Japan.